Hello and welcome. My name is Andrew Berry. I teach evolutionary biology and genetics at Harvard University, and I am here. I'm going to talk briefly, maybe a little bit shy of 30 minutes, about a very simple but central idea in biology, namely evolution. And what I want to do, and the purpose of this presentation, is to convince you that evolution 1 is exquisitely simple, and 2, that it's inevitable. That given a few logical premises, it follows. And there's nothing mysterious, there's nothing complicated, there's nothing sort of strange about the process of evolution. That's what I want to do. I want to demystify this most vilified, this most disputed, this most debated of all biological theories, all scientific theories. I want to convince you that it is super simple. So I suppose we have to ask, why is this theory, and it really is this theory, it's not any piece of science which gets this kind of pushback that we see for evolution. It's this idea, Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection, that gets all the pushback, it gets the anger, it gets the negation, if you like. And there's the entire creationist movement, of course, is what I'm talking about. Why is that? Well, I actually think it's almost inevitable again, because it's such a simple yet important idea. Important, obviously I'm a biologist, of course I think it's important because it informs everything in biology, but it's important for a sort of more significant reason than just biology. It's important because it explains so much. It explains the history of life on this planet, how we are all connected to each other by a network, by the tree of life, by a set of common ancestors going all the way back to the origin of life. But perhaps the most important thing, and the reason it's truly controversial, why people really are reluctant to take it on board, is what I think is probably the most important idea in the history of ideas. But I am biased, I'm an evolutionary biologist. And that's this, that humans, us, wonderful, smart, brainy, exalted, brilliant, fantastic, us, humans, we are nothing more than modified great apes. So we now think about 7 million years ago we had a common ancestor with our most recent common ancestor with our closest relatives, the chimpanzees. So that's 7 million years ago. You've got one lineage that goes that way that produces the chimpanzees. You've got another lineage that goes this way that produces you and me. It's a pretty sobering realization that us, wonderful humans, are in fact just, distantly related to chimpanzees, courtesy a bunch of changes which occurred over that 7 million year period from the common ancestor, which was also a great ape, an ancestral great ape. So yes, this brain, this source, this seat of human genius, is a modified great ape brain. I'm not surprised that people are uncomfortable with that truth. I'm not surprised there's pushback. But my purpose, as I already said today, is to convince you that the engine, if you like, that drove the process of evolution is a physico-chemical inevitability. It has to happen. There's nothing controversial about it. And therefore, once you've got the engine in place, the outcome is, in a sense, inevitable. Yes, we are the product of an evolutionary process. Once you understand that the engine is functioning and how it functions, then I hope you become more comfortable with an appreciation of the outcome. So that's what I'm doing today. What I should add, though, is that I am here in part to celebrate evolution, but also in part to contribute to an annual evolutionary conference which is held in Ankara, Turkey. It's hosted by students at the Middle Eastern Technical University, METÜ, and it was originated by a great scientist and a true hero in Turkey, Professor Aykut Kence, who died 6 years ago. Professor Kence was an evolutionary biologist who flew the evolution flag in Turkey. He responded to criticism. He explained to people. He got the word out about this idea. And he resisted a lot of pressure to, shall we say, pave over the idea. And I'm honored to be a part of the conference, which meets every year. It's organized by students at METÜ to continue Aykut Kence's legacy. Now, what I want to start with are two simple premises. And my claim is, once you've taken these premises on board, then evolution inevitably follows. So what are those two premises? Well, the first one is trivial. Living organisms reproduce. We all know this. Polar bears, baby polar bears. Penguins have baby penguins. Giraffes have baby giraffes. And koalas produce baby koalas. Ooh, I realized my background is in zoology. I have a training in animal biology. So I apologize to plant biologists and microbiologists that I've not included plants and microbes, which of course also reproduce. So my apologies. Anyway, you get the general idea. Things reproduce. We know that. Simple. Now, there's a corollary to that, and this is the key to the second premise. When two polar bears reproduce, it's not a sort of roll of the dice as to what they'll produce. They will produce a baby polar bear. They're not going to produce a baby penguin. They're not going to produce a baby giraffe. And we know why that is. It's because they are transmitting genetic information from parent to offspring. So the embryo inside Mrs. Polar Bear is full of information which specifies the construction of another polar bear. And that information, as you know, of course, is embedded in the code that is DNA. And DNA, as you surely know, is a string of letters, 4 basic letters, A, T, G, and C. And that's it. Life's code is written in this stunningly simple alphabet. And it's stunningly simple and stunningly powerful. There's a huge amount of it. So your genome as a human is about 3.5 billion letters long. 3.5 billion A's, T's, G's, and C's. And by the way, your every cell has 2 genomes because you've got one from your father and one from your mother. So that's 7 billion A, T's, G's, and C's in every cell. And just to underline the powerful significance of this code, let's go back to when I was conceived. Sperm meets egg. Now you've got a fertilized egg cell. There's a single cell with a string of A's, T's, G's, and C's from my father, a string of A's, T's, G's, and C's from my mother. So it's just a simple blob, that's what a cell is, okay, with 2 strings of A's, G's, C's, C, T, T, G, 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 C, 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 T, T's. One from mum, one from dad. And those strings of information then orchestrate the most extraordinary transformation there is. From a single cell, 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, 16 cells, 32 cells, etc. Until you produce something like this, an adult human being. And I believe the current estimate is that I consist of 50 trillion cells, 50 trillion cells. And those cells are extraordinarily differentiated. So some are muscle cells, some are nerve cells, some are kidney cells. And what's more, they're all coordinated. So the muscles and the kidneys and the nerve cells all work together to produce the single entity, which is me, Andrew Berry. I just think that's amazing. All from that single cell with this string of detailed information. Now, obviously, a key component of this process is the duplication of that information. So remember, every cell that is going to produce two daughter cells has to provision each daughter cell with a complete set of genetic information. So that 7 billion base pairs of DNA, which is parked in every cell nucleus, has to be duplicated before cell replication. And that's happening for 50 trillion cells, or a large proportion of the cells in my body which are undergoing regular replication. All that DNA duplication. Now, and that's true obviously in the case of producing sperm and eggs as well. And this is where our second premise arises. All that copying, our molecular systems are pretty damn good at it. Actually, it's pretty reliable, pretty faithful copies are produced each time we copy one of these great long DNA molecules. But sometimes mistakes occur, and as you probably know, these are mutations. So a mutation, the occasional mutation is, well, it's a thermodynamic inevitability. Just the occasional copying error. It happens. Now, okay, so let's look at a little more detail. Here's a zoomed in segment of our DNA sequence, GCAA. So all has happened, and there are various ways in which these errors can occur. The most common one is simply in the duplication process, replicating the DNA, is, oh dear, we've somehow screwed up our C and we've got a T. It's a mutation. It's a genetic difference. So, in other words, that code, now it's got a T rather than the C, is going to be read slightly differently. Okay? What we're generating through these mutations is genetic variation. And that's why I look different from you and why you look different from the person sitting across the room from you. There are genetic differences amongst people which were ultimately produced by mutation. Now, mutation is a kind of critical process. As I say, it's essentially a mistake, but it inevitably occurs. And I want to say briefly that it's not just some sort of theoretical necessity, as I've sort of suggested it is here, it's going to occur. No, it's something we can measure. We can measure very directly. In fact, we can actually count the number of mutations which occur. This is actually a super cool study from, 2017, 3 years ago. This is on the Icelandic population because there's very good access to genetic and related data from the Icelanders. What we're doing here is so-called trio studies. Now the trio in this case is mom, dad, and junior. So it's two parents and a child. What we're interested in is the rate at which new mutations occur. So we're actually specifically interested in how many new mutations are in the kid that were not present in the parents, because that would imply that those particular mutations must have arisen in the sperm and in the egg that produced junior. And actually this study's stunningly simple to do, if computationally intense. In this era now we have super efficient, high throughput DNA sequencing. We sequence the entire genome of mum, the entire genome of dad, the entire genome of junior, and then we play spot the difference. And this is what we see. This is the distribution for a whole bunch of people of the number of, the term of art is de novo, so these are new mutations in junior which are not present in mum or dad. So in other words, they occurred in the production of the sperm and the egg that produced Junior. And look, all humans have around, 70 or 80 new mutations. Every individual has 70, 80 new mutations. Okay? So, as I say, we can actually count mutations. Mutation happens. We can see them. And by the way, this is sort of by the by, but I think it's really cool. You can pass all these mutations into their source. So I've got 70 mutations from my parents. I can work out which of those came from my father and which of those came from my mother. And that's the left-hand plot, with blue being the male, the dead mutations, if you like, and red being female. Those are the mum mutations. And the details are somewhat unimportant. I just want you to, the take home here is actually really interesting, that most of the mutations you'll get were generated in the production of the sperm that created you. In other words, they're dad-derived, because there are many more mutations in the, as you can see, blue mutations than there are red mutations. Why is that? It's actually kind of what we expected, which is because there are two very different processes to producing sperm and to producing eggs. Sperm is produced in large volume all the time. So you've got lots of cell cycle, lots of cell replications to produce ever more sperm. And remember what I said? That it's the copying of the DNA sequence, the duplication of DNA, that is the source of occasional errors. So the more replications you do, the more likely you are to have problems. Okay? That's males. Females, very few DNA replications in the process of producing eggs. So it's much less error prone, which hence the discrepancy. Most of the de novo mutations you have were in the sperm derived from your father, not from the egg derived from your mother. But the details are unimportant. What matters is mutation happens. That's our second premise. So we've got our two premises. Organisms reproduce. 1, 2, mutation happens. Okay, so what does that mean? What that means, we're going to take these two premises and we're going to derive essentially the heart and soul of the evolutionary process. And the heart is natural selection and the soul is speciation. These are two completely separate, two completely distinct processes, but they are both born of these two basic premises I've just outlined. Now, just for introductory purposes, just to remind you, you probably already know this, natural selection is the process which results in organisms being often exquisitely adapted to their environment. So think of the hummingbird's bill, exactly the right proportions to probe to the base of the flower so it can get the nectar. This diagram is a famous case from Darwin's own book on the voyage of the Beagle, his journey around the world. He visited the Galapagos, and these are the little birds, the finches, as he thought they were, that he saw there. And what I want to point out is the famous observation that these are very similar, very closely related birds, but they're very different size and shape for their bills. So on the left, you've got the big nutcracker bill. On the right, you've got a little probing insect-eating bill. What's happened? Well, natural selection has shaped the different species bills so they can specialize on different things. So the nutcracker bill is good for crushing big seeds. The small probing bill is useless for that, but it's very good for picking insects out from crevices in bark, for example. Natural selection adapts organisms to their environment. Second, speciation. This is a sort of less spoken about, less obvious part of the theory of evolution, but it's absolutely critical. Let's do a thought experiment. You have the origin of life and you produce a simple cell, and then natural selection is working, so it's making that cell better adapted, more capable of dealing with different environments and so on and so forth. but there's no speciation. Speciation is the splitting of the family tree of life. Okay, so you've got natural selection improving our cell, and we're getting a bigger population of that cell, and natural selection's doing its job. But at the end of the day, you've still only got one species. The entire planet is inhabited by that single cell, or a large population of that single-celled organism, right? It's only through splitting the lineage, so you start here, split, that you're going to generate all the species, all the biological diversity, what we see around us. And so here's a simple part, small part of the family tree of life. That's just a bunch of mammals. See how they're related. But all I want to highlight are they're these splitting points on the family tree. We call them nodes. That's where the lineage has split. And that is where speciation has occurred. Speciation is the term of art for taking a single species, a single population, and over time splitting it into two separate species, two separate populations, two distinct populations. So you go from one thing, essentially, to two things. Okay, let's dive in and see where this takes us. Oops, sorry, I seem to have obliterated my zebra. But let's start with natural selection. I think you know what a zebra looks like. You can see the rear end of some zebra there. What we're going to do is just start with a couple of zebra. And we're going to be in zebra paradise. There's lots of grass. There's no lions. Life is good. So they're going to breed and have lots of offspring, and then the offspring are going to breed and have lots more offspring, and so on and so forth. And let's keep things simple. Let's say that we start with a doubling rate. So we start with 2 zebra, then the next go around we've got 4, then we've got 8, then we've got 16, then we've got 32, then we've got 64, then 128 and 250, and so on. This, as I'm sure you know, is a very familiar process. It's exponential increase. So basically, the more you get, the faster it goes. So this is an accelerating, ramping up process. It's an exponential process. But look, species out there don't have massive mega populations. They're constrained. They're limited in the size and number of individuals. And that's determined by what we call the carrying capacity of environment, which is the amount of food, the amount of water, and so on. So you can't be exponential all the time. You're going to have mortality because you're going to hit limits. You're going to run out of resources. That's the carrying capacity. Okay, so you've got mortality, and I'm going to put in a green line now which shows you actually sort of what happens. So you will sort of equilibrate to the carrying capacity for the population. But the question now, so we've established, given exponential increase, but given limited resources, i.e. a finite carrying capacity, we are going to have significant death, significant mortality. And so the question is, who dies? Well, let's stick with zebras. What I've done here is show a distribution, a sort of bell-shaped curve distribution of the running speed of zebras in a single population. Okay, so you got some, on the left you've got some very slow running zebras, and on the right you've got some fast running zebras, and a lot of zebras are basically in the middle, sort of running middle speed. And here you can see we have a predator, which is going to come into the mix. That's Mr. Lion, as you can see. So on the right, we've got the fast zebras. On the left, we've got the plodding, slow zebras. And of course, what happens to them? Mr. Lion deals with them, right? And they get eliminated or eaten. So effectively, the lions or whatever are eliminating part of this distribution, the sort of left-hand end of this distribution. Now, so what we have is selective mortality. It's the slow zebras that are dying and the fast zebras that are surviving. Now, let's assume, as is generally true, at least part of the difference between a fast and slow zebra is genetic variation. So slow zebras have genetic variants which mandate slowness, and fast zebras have fast zebra genetic variants. What does this mean? Well, the slow zebras aren't getting to reproduce. They've been eaten. So they're not going to contribute to the next generation. The fast zebras, they've done okay. They've avoided the lions, so they're going to contribute to the next generation. So that means that the genetic variants which endow zebras with high running speed are going to be more highly represented in the next generation. So essentially, we could say that we're shifting the whole curve to the right for the next generation to produce overall slightly faster zebras. Okay? That's inevitable given reproduction and therefore exponential increase, but coupled with finite resources, which again is inevitable. And then with genetic variation, which has an impact on who survives, who gets to reproduce, and who doesn't. Put those together and you have natural selection. Natural selection is that enrichment in the next generation for the genetic variation which gives the successful individuals an advantage. Okay, so that's natural selection. As I say, it's an inevitability. Let's go back here, and we're now going to talk, so we've done one, natural selection. Let's now talk about this process of speciation, which, remember, is the splitting of the tree. So what does that actually involve? Well, let's think about our closest relatives. This is a pair of rather happy chimpanzees who, as I've already said, are our closest relatives. Now, one thing that is clear, I'm a member of Homo sapiens, that's our species. These chimpanzees are a different species. When I say that, what does that mean? It means essentially that we can't interbreed. Okay? Now, if I run into another member of Homo sapiens, I can interbreed with them. I cannot interbreed with a chimpanzee, and obviously vice versa. So the term of art here is we say that two species are reproductively isolated. So they're incapable, it's impossible for them to interbreed, to exchange genetic material. So what speciation effectively is the acquisition, the getting of reproductive isolation. Now, how does that happen? Well, here's a simple sort of conceptual diagram. Up and down the page, we've got time. So we're starting in the past and moving to the present. Again, I've obliterated the present. I apologize for that, but you get the general idea. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with a parental species. And here's, in fact, I've taken the middle-sized bill finch from Darwin's Galapagos finches. We're going to have a single population of that. We're going to split that population into two. So these are now two identical subpopulations, if you like. And the critical thing, though, is that they are geographically isolated from each other. Now, that's a fancy way of saying they're in different places. Okay? So now we've got two subpopulations which are no longer communicating with each other genetically. So the individuals in this population are breeding with other individuals in this population, and the individuals in this population are breeding with those populations. There's no traffic between the two. Okay? So what's going to happen? Well, look, it's our old friend mutation. I've marked mutation with these squiggly red arrows. So this mutation is going to occur in these populations as time goes on. Okay. Now, the critical thing is each population is going to pick up different mutations. Now, why do I say different mutations? Well, remember, the mutations are fairly rare and genomes are huge. So if you're making a random event in genome 1 and a random event in genome 2, it's very unlikely it's going to be the same random event. So each population is going to pick up different mutations, and those are going to be unique to each population because remember, there's no genetic traffic between the two populations. The two populations are in different places, they're isolated from each other. What does that mean? Well, as time ticks by, so each population is going to pick up more and more mutations. It's going to become more and more genetically different. And notice that the dotted line at the bottom of the page is a measure of the extent of genetic difference between populations. Okay, so as time goes by, so our populations are going to become more and more genetically different as more and more mutations accumulate in each one. That's inevitable. Okay, now let's keep going. So as time goes on, we're still diverging genetically. These two populations are becoming more and more different. But what about speciation? When does that actually happen? Well, let's test it. So there's a red mark. Let's actually test whether we've got two species at this stage. What we're going to do is let's take a female from this population and a male from this population, and let's put them together. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, they produce an offspring. Okay, so even though they're genetically different, they're not yet reproductively isolated. So they're still the same species. We've had no speciation. But let's keep traveling forward in time. Let's do this now, exactly the same experiment later in time. And by the way, this time axis is probably tens of thousands of years. So we're talking long periods of time here. Now let's try the same thing. We've got a male and a female. No offspring. What does that tell us? Well, this is the human-chimpanzee situation. We're reproductively isolated from each other. Now the two populations are reproductively isolated from each other. In other words, speciation has occurred, and from the single ancestral population, we produced two daughter species. That's the process of speciation. And just to make the point, here we could say, on the left-hand lineage, we've produced the small-billed finch, and on the right-hand lineage, we produced the big-billed finch. But that's icing on the cake. The critical thing is this, that speciation is simply the inevitable, I keep using that word, byproduct of genetic divergence, the accumulation of mutational difference between isolated populations. Take any two populations, keep them isolated for long enough, they will eventually produce two new species, simply because mutation is inevitable. So, that's it. It's super simple. Natural selection is inevitable if you've got organisms that reproduce and mutation. Speciation is inevitable, courtesy mutation accumulating over time until eventually two genomes are too different to come together and produce an offspring. Hybridization becomes impossible. And all I want you to understand is evolution isn't mysterious. It's not in any way magical. It's brilliantly, beautifully simple. Remember, we just start with those two basic premises, and then we've got the process. We've got the engine, natural selection and speciation, the engine of evolution. It isn't, as I've written here, mysterious or complicated. It's simple. And most compellingly, it's inevitable.